Oh, hello, everyone. I am here today with Danielle Moon, Senior Specialist for AI Business Process at Microsoft, who is also a good friend of mine, and I would love to consider her my mentor as well. She is also the founder of Women in Power platform and one of the panelists joining us at M365 New York City for a panel called Real Stories for Women Who Made Their Mark in Tech. Danielle, thank you so much for joining us. Before we really get into the panel, you know, tell us a little bit about yourself and also tell us something that people might be surprised to learn about you.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I will have to say I've seen so many of your interviews and like things that you've done at conferences, and I've always just been the kid who's like, one day he's going to choose me.
I'm
So
getting better.
I'm so excited. Yeah. So with the panel, or sorry, what do I do? Wonderful question. In my day job, I get to do the coolest job ever, which is I get to sell Power Platform and Dynamics. So I get to work with retail and consumer customers who are trying to tackle frontline worker experiences, sales associates, as well as the corporate house. So it's really exciting because right now, especially in the space of AI, everyone is looking at what is that big thing that's going to happen that's going to make them better than everyone else. And the retail space is kind of like an old school industry with a very new edge going into it. So that's the day job. And then for the what fills my cup, that's the women in power and all the amazing things we get to do with mentoring and skilling and networking. And we get to go and have these like amazing lunches where women get to connect and network and hear panels and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I guess personal side, I've got a wonderful husband and four feral children. So that keeps life always busy.
Amazing. So Danielle, so you founded, of course, Women in Power platform, or can we just call it just Women in Power? Because
Yeah.
let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
Um, so can you tell us what the group is, how you join it, and why it matters to you?
Yeah, of course. So we have a LinkedIn page. That's where you can go on and you can follow our official page. That's how you kind of like start seeing our news, events, things like that. We also have a group on LinkedIn too. So we have basically a company page and a group page just so that we would have a space for people to actually be able to interact as a community, as well as one where you could just say like official news coming in. And what we do at the heart is mentorship, right? That is something that was really a standout to me that I was like, why don't we have better programs around this? Like your what is it, Nisi, who I met at the M365 conference, did a whole TED talk on like your network is basically stock and like it's your net worth. And now I'm hearing that so much now and it really resonates. And that really could be a lot from your mentoring, right? If you pick the right mentor, they open up doors for you. They connect you further. Hopefully, then you're building into a sponsorship level, right? So, like those intrinsic things, I don't think there's a great course out there for anybody to really learn from. It's more about just doing it. And joining a program like Women in Power allows you to understand the basics. How do I become a good mentee? How to become a good mentor? Like how do I do these things to really set myself above and enrich my network? And that's another one of our pillars is the networking side. How am I making sure? A long time ago, I had a leader tell me, like, draw the me, put a circle around it. That's your first sphere of influence in your team. Like, those are the people that you're working with day to day. Draw a circle around that. That's like your leadership side. Then, draw a circle on that. That's your skip level, blah, blah. And the whole idea is like, how many rings can you get away from yourself that increases your orbit and your sphere of influence? And that to me is that network. And again, there's not enough people really helping women understand the questions they should be asking, being bodacious and saying, hey, I want to show up in this space. How do I get there? And last but not least, it's the networking side of it too, right? Or it's our skilling side too. On skills, we can't just be a bunch of really cool people who like to do things. We have to actually be able to do the thing. So, how do we up ourselves in our personal skills, our technical skills? That kind of makes this beautiful package of somebody who I'm willing to say, "Hey, I want to put you out front and center."
one thing about myself, like I still consider very much a mentee, and I'm always looking
Yeah.
for learning opportunities and things like that. But I've been around the block for a minute. Like been in SharePoint since 2009, and that's probably gonna age me.
You
But
were
my
a
point.
baby.
I act like one. 46-year-old toddler. I've had a number of years in my professional career and all that. And of course, by now there are opportunities of me to be a mentor as well. But if there's one thing that I've learned is that even as a mentor, you're still learning. Like even when you're teaching, you're constantly learning because new opinions are different than the ones that you had before. So it's all like, for me, it's so refreshing when you're doing that. It's like sometimes people think like, oh, you're giving so much. I'm like, no, I'm getting so much more back always.
Oh, it should
You
totally
always get
be
more.
like, yeah, it's a reciprocal kind of
Hmm.
situation where you're, I think you're always changing a little bit of hands. It's more about creating that relationship,
Right.
right? So, and that's why we joke about saying like, don't find yourself in a situationship, make sure it's a mentorship. Because that what makes the comfort level and the foundation feel safe. That's where
Right.
you can really open up. And I've had so many people tell me like, oh, I thought I was going in to teach this person XYZ. And personally, they turned around and taught me,
Yeah.
ABC. And like, it's so amazing to see that some things were personal, some things were business. And they were not realizing that they actually were doing this like beautiful dance to help both people become better humans together.
Absolutely, absolutely. So on that note, there was a point probably that you were like sitting in your office, and I have to create a group for this. So what was that moment of inspiration for you? And when you did that, like, what did you feel that was really missing in the community?
I don't know about you, but I do some of my best things when in spite. So it, sometimes when you're raged a little bit, you do some of the best work possible, right? I had been actually at a Microsoft event where we had 100 people in the room. We were discussing all the stuff about products and everything, and at the end we took a picture. And being who I am, I was like, oh my god, I would love to take a picture of all the women in the room. And it went from 100 to like 8, 9, 10, whatever it is, drastically smaller. And it was in that moment that I looked around and was like, I could not tell the story or even the first name of every woman who I am looking side to side with. And if we're going to be this smaller group, this little group of little ones that stick out from this huge like beast of a group, like how do we not know each other's stories? Like how am I not helping the visibility be there? And so I flippantly kind of said in that moment, I'm going to create a community and we're really going to network and get to know each other and we're going to be able to like raise each other up. And I'm called Women in Power and like this is gonna be great. And I said that in front of a VP. And so, sometimes when you're flippant, you don't actually check your titles around you. That happens. I've got a little career limiting mouth. It's okay. And then I don't know, about a month or two later, I had one of my favorite advisors be like, "Hey, weren't you supposed to like start this thing?" And it was like, "Oh, well, my emotions had come down. I'm a little fiery. I'm like, oh, I haven't figured out what my mission is going to be. I don't know what the statement is, like blah blah blah, like the logistics." Um, and he was like, "What's that stupid thing you say?" And I'm like, starting." And he was like, "Sounds like you need to do that." And I was like, "Yeah." And so he was like, "Listen, if you put this on LinkedIn, I will repost it." Like he's like, "Whatever that will help, I'll do that." And it was one of those things where I was like, wow, somebody is willing to get out there and put their name on me when I have a half-baked idea. And so yeah, I put the post out there and I said, "Hey, I'm starting this community, calling for women in power, and like who knows what we're gonna do." Like we didn't have the pillage, we didn't have anything. Also, I had never started a community. Turns out it's a lot more work. Than the like, let's just all be friends and hang out with each other. So yeah, so I put that on LinkedIn and had this like, oh my gosh, if we get 100 women, how cool would this be? And blah blah. And now between our two pages, we have like 6,000. And that's 2 years in the making, which is just like
That's
still
crazy.
so crazy to me that there's enough of a need. Um, and as far as a want and everything, like I think there are communities that are serving very similar paths to us. I was just on with Mary Myers, who does stuff with like Tech Fluent, and she and I had this amazing conversation where I was like, we are here to help each other. There's no reason for there not to be another community made because at the end of the day, I might not be your cup of tea. I would not want our message to go away or you not to get help because I wasn't your cup of tea. If there's another community that's doing something similar and they're your cup of tea, then all like we all win because you're being seen by somebody, you're getting helped by someone, you're contributing to something. So I think that was also not so much looking around and not seeing a community that was like us. I think there's a lot like us. It was just another voice, another way of seeing the same problem and trying to solve for it in a slightly different way.
Yeah, and guys, if you haven't been to any of the luncheons, like during one of the community conferences of the Women in Power group or any of the get together, I mean those groups fill out. It's kind of like you have to fight your way for a ticket. You know,
We're
it,
trying to get better on
it's
that.
it's amazing. But honestly, I'm seeing them getting bigger and bigger and
Yeah.
bigger. You know, it's the one thing to do at the events. Like, hey, have you got your wristband? Have you got your wristband yet? You know, it's incredible, incredible. But hey, I want to ask you this because I read last year about this study from Harvard Business School that involved more than 140,000 people that women adopt AI tools at a 25% lower rate than men. I'm not sure if you ever read
Oh, I read that one.
about this
Okay.
without getting into the merits of the study. You know, the idea is that women are more embarrassed to use AI because it's kind of like it's not seen as real work and all that. But all in all, the point is, if that is indeed correct, that women adopt AI tools at 25% rate than men, why do you think this gap exists? What do communities like this one can do to help close this gap?
Oof, you're coming with hard ones. Okay. So
Told you I did my research.
I love it though. I do. One thing I would honestly look at too is just like who was polled in that and how many of them were professionals versus perhaps in the traditional sense like stay-at-home moms or caregivers. Because that's going to take a lot of, potential out of who thinks they should be using it. The other part, I have actually heard a lot of women really bring back the whole idea of being biased. Like they don't see it as a tool for them because when they did use it, the bias side of it was just so glaringly obvious that they're like, no thanks. And I only liken that to, do you remember how like a year and a half ago when we all started doing that trend where we were making like avatars of ourselves, things like that? And so like you would feed in that stuff. And so many women were like, if they put in that they were a woman, they immediately got a very womanly figure. And it was like that was just the bias of it. If I say 42, there got all like the ageism thing showed up real fast on like what a 42. So I think there's some of that people just don't have the want to like feed the beast because it felt very biased. I think there's been a lot of changes that have happened. There's a lot of good work going into making sure that doesn't exist as much. But when you bake things based off of history and history has a certain, theme to it, it's inevitable that it's going to happen. So I would guess that some of that is possibly that. The other thing is thinking about women and how we go about getting a job. We don't want to do it unless we feel like we are already overdone for it, right? Like we're able to check all the boxes. So there might be a little bit of a fear of like, what if I put something in here and then I use it and I don't know enough to back every single piece of this up? Am I as good as I thought I was? Where certain other personalities will just be like, ship it. And I promise you, I have seen some things published where I'm like, you didn't check any of this. You just
Mhm.
went full send. And women typically don't have the grace to come back from that versus a lot of the men that are in the same industry. They can FUPAR. They can backtrack. They're like, oh yeah, sorry about that. And people are like, no problem. But for a woman in the tech side, especially, they would be taken out if they put out something like that. They would be really ridiculed so much higher. And so yeah, I think there's like a trust and a level of control that you have to give away.
Mhm. I see that. I see that sometimes I'm treated at different standards than female colleagues are.
It's really
Let me
hard
tell you
to
what I see
though.
here. Like, let's elevate each other
Yeah,
here.
and I look, here's a great example that like I'm still working through how to handle, but it's just like I was with a customer joking around just like my male counterparts did. And I got the feedback that I was lacking executive presence because I was joking around, and I was like, okay, but that's like what we do. This is how we like this is part of and it's just like that was a check where I was like, man, I thought I'd kind of made some really good leaps and bounds. And then that's the feedback you get. And you're like, you have to kind of start asking yourself, like, is there a bias to this? And sometimes it is easy as calling it out and simply saying, like, hey, um, another example, and this is such a funny thing, but like I'm 42 and apparently I went through a little bit of a midlife crisis. And I bought my dream vehicle and I posted on LinkedIn, and I got so many conversations from male leadership over the fact that I posted this dream vehicle and all that kind of stuff. And I was so flabbergasted. I said, would you say this if this is one of the guys posting a sports car? Like, why is this such a center of conversation? And immediately they realized, and they were great about it. Like, but it was one of those things like I had to expose to them that they were doing something that they just weren't even realizing in that moment. And it took a lot of guts to just be like, hey, if this was this guy who I know bought an old car, and you guys were talking about it for months about how awesome it was, and I was like, I buy one and you guys are asking really inappropriate kind of conversations and questions about it, as far as like why I did this. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And so yeah, I think if women get a little bit more comfortable making others uncomfortable, maybe we'll get there a little bit faster.
Yep, I agree. So, Danielle, so now about the panel. The panel is called Real Stories from Women Who Made Their Mark in Tech. What is one career moment that helped shape the person that you are today?
Ooh, okay. First of all, there's a lot of pressure to be on a panel with that kind of title. Let's be honest. If I wasn't having more of a moment, I would be like, "Do you really want me?" I there's been lots of moments that I think kind of like up level you, right? Like every time you're like, "Okay, this is it. Like I've now become another person. I've now achieved something more." Um, but I think that the biggest, strangest one was actually creating Women in Power. By giving myself a title of a founder, and realizing the doors that it opened, even though it wasn't my day job, and then being able to connect women. Like one of my favorite things is at these lunches, we have the panel, we do the show, all the fun stuff happens, and then people leave, but people stay and they sit at a table. And then you see different tables staying longer and having not surface level conversations. They're getting into deeper dialogue, things like that. Um, I think that's one of the pivotal moments of like, I have this power even though I don't have this fancy title. I can contribute in a way I never thought I could. Um, I think that's one of
I
them.
agree with you because it's kind of like you start seeing the effects and or the ripple effects rather of that one
Yeah.
small decision that you made, and you're like, wait a second, people are listening. Like I
Yeah.
have a voice here. I am actually making an impact, and with something that as simple as you saying, I'm going to create a LinkedIn page. How that
Yeah.
thing takes off.
It's and it's one of the I think you nailed it on the head too, like, I think all of us walk around being like, oh, I don't have anything to say, or I don't, but it's everyone has something. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a learning or a failure or something like that. Like, I personally love to talk about my failures
Hmm.
because it's so much more human than somebody getting up there and telling you how successful you are. Like, love the success. Don't get me wrong, but give me your failure. Give me what when you felt so hard from grace, and you had to come back up from that. We have I have so many amazing women in my leadership team. Like, I tell them all the time, like, if I'm the only person on that stage, I've done you a disservice because there's no legacy in me. The legacy is in all the women and the allies that we bring to the table. So if that's not happening, we failed. And if we put a mentoring program together and it's run by volunteers and it's run by women who have not had leadership positions before, and we're the first ones to give them a leadership position, and then they don't knock it out of the park, that's okay. That's actually great because guess what? They just learned a bunch of stuff and they just showed a lot of people that we didn't have to be perfect. And I love that. Like, that's what gives me goosebumps is when you see somebody who has never been picked. Like, you think about the playground and like people are picking teams, and that person never got picked because no one just really like saw and said, like, I think there's something in you. And now we have an organization that we can say, like, I see you, get up here. Um, Fail if you need to, because if that failure, if you do that once, like that was the bar. That's the lowest it's gonna be. We're only going up from here. Then how amazing, like how powerful can that be for everybody in the room to now experience that with you?
I agree. Like to me, I feel like failing helps you build confidence, right? The more you fail, the better you get at doing whatever it is that you want to do,
Yeah.
right? But like
I'm
for
a horrible public speaker.
I
Like, I was just with at EPCC. I got off the stage, Diego, and I was like, I looked at Susie, and I was like, I have got to get better at this speaking thing. And it was one of those things where I was like, you know me, I get really excited. I'm really passionate. And then words and on the stage just go out and I'm like, oh my God, I was supposed to land all these 5 things. And I think I said, my name is Danielle. It's like those are like, I do that every time I'm on stage, not because I'm the best speaker. I'm doing it because someone needs to get up there. Someone needs to show them that imperfection is perfectly okay. And yeah, every time I get a little bit better, and that's it.
I'm just getting better at being
And I
weird. You
think
know what I
that's
mean?
that's a
And
superpower that a lot of people don't
thank you.
recognize and should. And I think it is becoming its own thing. Like, people don't want we have a lot of AI versioned people, right? And I think that the threshold for wanting to see that is going down so fast. People want a little messiness. They want a little bit more human because that just it feels better. It really does. Like,
Oh, I'm chaos. But but listen, but we were talking about confidence here and our lack of
yeah.
confidence. So that leads me to the next question, which is like, have you ever faced a moment that you struggled with confidence in your career, and what really helped you move forward?
Last year. So I came into Microsoft, I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's the mothership." And I was so excited. And it was one of those things where I'm like, "Oh, I probably didn't check all the boxes and my relationships and everything. Like, they saw a little something, they're like, "We're willing to take you." But I always felt like I was a little bit of an underdog in the technical side of things. And then I really fell in love with the idea of sales. It was not something that I had been part of before in any capacity. But anyways, I was like, oh, this is going to be exciting. So I go into sales. Okay. The beauty part was the customers who I had cultivated as their technical person were now the customers I was selling to. So the relationship was there. The everything was seems like very continuous, right? And then after a year, my territory shifted. And now I was dealing with strangers. And that was terrifying. And I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I sales maybe isn't my thing. Because I don't know how to do cold calling or start any things, right? Like, there was a lot to that. And so, yeah, last year was really difficult because I had to figure out, even though I was in year 2 of my job, it felt like year 1 again, but a harder year 1. And you know what? I just closed the year at 147% of my quota, right? Like, came out of nowhere. I remember telling my manager at the beginning of the year, "I'm gonna be lucky if I can make this an 80% year," like that. And I jokingly told other people, I was like, "I'll auction off my territory if you wanna take these and, like, switch up back to my, my safety, my comfort." Um, and then this year came out of nowhere, in a different way. Like, I had to just kinda say, like, "All right, it is what it is. No one's gonna save me. There is nothing that can be done other than me just trying, and let's just see where that goes."
Amazing, amazing story. So when you're doing these things at the end of the day, you're
Yeah.
not alone, right? Like you need your sponsors, you need your mentors, you need your colleagues. So how important have all these people, and particularly your community, like how important have they been to you
Oh,
throughout your
I'm
career?
raised by a village. I've got the best of the best. Mainly because 'cause I'm super greedy. Like, if you're coming to me and you say you have 1 mentor, I'll be like, "Why?" Like, there's not a cap on mentors, right? There is always a reason to be kind of switching some players out, and also just keeping your eye open and having informationals, right? A lot of people have informationals for jobs, and that's a great way of doing it. You should also be having informationals on potential mentors, or sponsors. Like, that should just be in your list. So yeah, I mean, sales is hard. I know it looks glamorous, but it is a roller coaster of emotions and people constantly bringing you a negative and you having to like spin it into a positive. So having a hype squad of people who audaciously, bodaciously just believe you can be successful based off of no facts whatsoever is amazing, because that really just kind of gives you this like weird sense of like, yeah, okay, like they're smart people. I guess I can do it. So having that hype squad. Heather Cook talks about, what is it, the board room, right? Like the board members, like having that. So it's not just mentors, it's having a whole community so that on your worst day, you know who to call and they will help you piece it back together, or they'll help you just listen to you like vent. Like, have you ever had one of those where you're like, you call someone, you're like, listen, I want no advice. I just need to get this off my chest and then I'm going to be fine and I'm going to go back to it. Like, you need to have all of those different characters in play so that you can leverage when you need to. And it has to be reciprocal, of course. Like, you can't just have this like
Yep.
people and be like, I'm just going to take all this time and like give back. But, building that network and having that community, I think, is what keeps us going through, especially in the day and world that we live in, right?
And having people who call
Oh
you
gosh,
out
yeah.
too, because sometimes you think you're out there with the best idea in the
Yep.
universe, and you're like, can you reveal this email? And they're like, for the love of God, do not send
So
this.
I have what I jokingly call my 3 big brothers of Microsoft, okay? And they all came from like oil and gas. And so like, we have a very beautiful bond. And so Ken, Warren, and Chris, if I'm feeling too up on myself, they will be the first to be like, you need a little humble pie. And that I would not give up for anything. Do they beat my ego down? Absolutely. Should sometimes that ego be beat down? Absolutely. But at the same time, they have my back. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, like they're the best. And that's actually why, honestly, when I started Women in Power, I had a lot of women reach out and they're like, yes, heck yes, women in power. We hate men. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Right, right.
Not that group, because I owe some of my
Right.
best mentors, my best sponsors, have been men in the past. And that's why having allies means the world to us. Like, we have to make sure that story and that understanding is very like cemented and how to be successful together.
Okay. So first of all, you are in my hype squad. Okay. Just full
100%.
disclosure here. Um, your mission ally. I very much consider
Yes.
myself one. And I like to, to attend every single women in tech, women in power event that I can. But as an ally, what advice do you have for someone like me,
Yeah.
or for someone who is kind of watching this from the sidelines and says, I want to help, I don't know how
Yeah.
to? Like, where do they
Well,
start?
first of all, I have to thank you because you gave me a beautiful review of being an ally. All right. So when we were at M365 conference, you actually had a meetup for your group of LGBTQ, and I was able to actually join. And I was like, oh no, this what it feels like to like be like, I'm not the center, I'm not the person, I'm just showing up, just say like I'm here. Um, being in that room.
And that was so important, by the way, showing up and being present.
But what was more exciting to me was I just got to listen. I did not want to have any headline, right? I was a supporting actor in that space, and I was able to just sit back and be like, oh, this is from the outside in what needs to be happening. And so now when I talk to allies, I like to tell them it's an 80-20 situation. You should be listening 80%, if not more, and only talking 20 when asked, when seeked out for a conversation, when asked about advice. That's when you can play a part. But we have some mentors that came in because we allow our allies to be mentors, not our mentees. And I've had to have like the uncomfortable conversation of saying, like, you're using up too much oxygen in the room, and this is not your platform. Like, you are a supporting actor. You're never going to be the headline. And I think that's really important for us to like get with allies, because if they're used to being front center because they're an MVP, like they're the expert, that's great. We want to use that, but that's not our headline. That's not the big news to come out of this.
When it comes to like careers in tech now, what is the one thing that you wish women, or that you wish more women knew, when starting, when just starting their careers?
Ooh. Starting a career in tech can be probably one of the most exciting and draining opportunities that you have, because just by, in a sense, like you are asking to be part of something that is forever changing, right? So there's such an exhaustion level that if you don't take care of yourself, it will show in your work. Um, I see a lot of women, again, kind of over index because they're so excited to be at the table that they then over index and they do all the things all too much. And then they end up burning out, and they get really crispy. And then they end up hurting themselves in a meeting because they're sleep deprived, or they're not taking care of their mental state, or they're not eating well, or whatever the case is, because they thought they needed to make sacrifices in order to show up well and ready for that meeting. And I've seen it a couple times where I'm like, hey, when was the last time you touched grass and went outside? Because I know for myself, I do it all the time. But I think when you're first in tech, there's such an intoxicating excitement that you can kind of like get a little
Hmm.
too, keyed into everything. Like, make sure that this does not become your entire personality. Make sure that you are still retaining an individualness, listen to it. Whether that be something corny as like have a brand, but like whatever it is, have a pet, go outside, have a hobby, whatever the case is, like don't let the idea of being in tech just become your entire personality.
You said touching grass. Like lately, I've been saying all the time, like people need to
Me
touch
too.
grass a little
Yeah.
more. Like go do other things, because it's like this ever never ending like source of
Yes.
information. You're never gonna know
Yep.
everything, and so kind of like know how to say no sometimes and step away, go do other things, because if you don't do those other things, you're not gonna have the stories and you're not gonna have the experience to do
And
what
you're
you
not
do
a good
right here.
like, you're not an interesting human anymore. You're just a one-dimensional thing, and that's I was just talking with another woman, and I was like, in in the workplace, people really don't understand the power of likability. You can be super super smart and know all the things, but not know how to human enough, and you will go nowhere. Because quite frankly, people don't want to have a conversation with you. So, like, do you want to be a walking encyclopedia of all this information, but then people avoid you like the plague? Or do you want to have enough information and know where those people are that have the deeper understanding and have a healthy network so that you can offload some of those very deep technical pieces to somebody else? But that means you get to involve another human. Like, those are things you should be evaluating. Likability does make a huge difference. I think that'd be the other thing. Like, don't go in there and scorch earth, right? I've definitely been in
Right.
meetings where I'm like, "This is a hill I will die on." And you can do that later in your career. When you're first starting, have enough onus to, like, say, like, "Do I need to be likable right now?" Which is, like, a really hard pill to swallow, and let this person have the win. And if that win is happening, will it be detrimental in the big scheme of things? Because sometimes I can get very like, "No, no, no, like, this has to be right because this is my personality." But instead, what I'm doing is I'm hurting a bigger thing. And I think that you gain that perspective as you get older. If I was young again, that would be one thing I wish I would have grabbed a lot faster.
Nice. Good advice. Um, what are you the most excited to discuss with the other panelists over there?
Well, I think we're all coming from very different worlds. So that to me, like, I've done a lot of panels that like we've all been Microsoft people. So to be fair, like this is one of the first ones where I'm getting to see what is it, ones from like Morgan Stanley. Like there's like a very different, like Rochelle's putting together just such an epic group that I'm excited just to kind of hear from the perspective of them, like what they're seeing, what they're doing outside of my bubble of the Microsoft space.
Right. Wow. Amazing talking to you, Danielle. Like
Okay,
you're
gotcha.
delightful as always. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your story with us. We're excited to have you at M365 New York City and to hear more from you and the panel July 31st. Any final parting
Oh
thoughts
my
for
gosh.
us?
One, your questions were so good. Now I'm gonna have to just make sure I really get better on that panel. So no, I appreciate the time. Like I said, this has been a dream. I've really looked forward to being able to sit down with you and do one of these. So thank you for the opportunity.
We'll do more. So listen, guys, don't forget to sign up right now if you haven't. M365NYC.com, July 31st at Microsoft Times Square. Danielle, once again, thank you so much for being with us today. Looking forward to seeing this posted online. Watch out for the clips on LinkedIn and all the good stuff throughout this week. And once again, thank you so much. Okay, this was amazing.
So thank you. You are the best.
Oh, thank you. You are. Thank you.